by now, but the author of The Test of Our Times, America Under Siege and How We Can Be Safe Again. I'm showing the cover of the book to those who are watching our webcast. And Thom Ridge, Secretary Ridge, welcome to the show.
Thom, nice to join you and your audience. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you very much. On page 49 of your book, there's a whole section here where you get into this whole thing about the Anthrax attacks. Mm-hmm. And you point out on page 49 that the two members of Congress who got anthrax were Tom Daschle and Pat Leahy. You didn't note, but a lot of us did, that those were the two guys who stood in a position to block the Patriot Act. It had to go through Pat Leahy's committee, the Senate Judiciary Committee, and then Tom Daschle had to allow it to the floor. And they were indicating some wariness about that, and they were the only two guys who got anthrax. I'm curious your thoughts on the possible political motivation of the anthrax killer and where that investigation is at right now.
Well, I think that based on what I know, and it's certainly not anything close to what the FBI knows once they identified whom they thought the responsible party was, I can't give you an explanation and tell you whether or not there's a political connection. Ultimately, I think that at the end of the day, both senators voted for the Patriot Act. I think there was only one dissenting vote. So I don't know. As you and I both know, the FBI identified someone they thought was the responsible party, pursuing criminal action against them, and that individual who'd worked in one of the national laboratories committed suicide. So if there was a political motive, and if that was actually the individual, I guess we'll never know.
Yeah, and still a lot of questions around that.
Well, there are. I mean, again, people said, what do you think? And I said, well, the FBI, I refer all those questions to the FBI. They thought they had their man, but there are a lot of people in the scientific community, and certainly a lot of his friends think they identified the wrong man.
Right.
I don't know.
In your book, you recount a conversation with a fellow caller to a radio show by the name of Brian, and he asked you a question: where in Afghanistan is this guy? That would be Osama bin Laden. Let me just ask you that question again. Do you have any sense of where he is?
No, I think it's the general sense while I was there, and certainly what has been portrayed publicly since I left. It's then that fairly lawless, remote, desolate, moon-like landscape between Pakistan and Afghanistan along the southwestern border.
Do you think he's still alive?
I think he is.
Yeah.
I think he is. Yeah, I think, I think all of us want to bring him to justice, and for different people that means different things. But at the end of the day, because I think they have a hierarchy, and while it's important symbolically to get him, I don't think that would undermine the effort of Al-Qaeda or undermine the poisonous ideology that they promoted.
Sure. Are you familiar with Mickey Herskowitz?
I'm not.
Mickey Herskowitz is the author of more than 30 books. He's most famous as a kind of ghostwriter. He co-authors books with people like Michael Deaver, for example, the Reagan advisor. He did his book.
Okay.
He's a former reporter down in Houston for years and years at the paper down there. I forget the name of it. And he was hired by the Bush family in 1999 to write A Charge to Keep: My Journey to the White House, George Bush's autobiography. Mm-hmm. And he granted an interview to Russell Baker based on hours and hours and hours of. He wrote the first draft, and then he was replaced for the second draft with another writer. The publisher was William Morrow, and none of this, by the way, has been challenged. He was interviewed by Russ Baker, the reporter, and he said, and I quote. This is what this is Baker writing. He said, he was thinking about invading Iraq in 1999, said author and journalist Mickey Herskowitz. It was on his mind. He said to me, and this is now quoting George W. Bush, in 1999, one of the keys to being seen as a great leader is to be seen as a commander-in-chief. My father had all this political capital built up when he drove the Iraqis out of Kuwait, and he wasted it. If I have a chance to invade Iraq, if I have that much capital, I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to get everything passed that I want to get passed, and I'm going to have a successful presidency. Mm-hmm. End of quote. This was in 1999. Now, Paul O'Neill and several other members of the cabinet have written and testified that in the very first meeting, the very first cabinet meeting that the Bush administration had, which I believe was before you came into the administration at that level,
correct,
the first topic that was brought up was how do we invade Iraq? And it seems from Herskowitz's interviews with George W. Bush in 1999 that Bush's thought was, and this was based, in fact, he quoted Dick Cheney back when Cheney was working in the, when he was on the House Republican Policy Committee under Reagan, quote, "Start a small war. Pick a country where there's a justification you can jump on. Go ahead and invade. You'll get enormous political power." That's what this was all about. And that is implied in the text on the dust jacket of your book that you've kind of disavowed. I'm wondering if first of all, if you'll accept as true what I just told you, it is, if that might recalibrate your reaction to the potential politicization of this war.
Well, first of all, I don't necessarily accept it as true because I've known the president for 20-some years, and the notion that somehow he would be looking for a place to send our troops to spill their blood to advance his own political interest, I find it I can't accept that. But there are others that may believe it, and many that do are still litigating our presence in Iraq.
Well, he wouldn't be the first politician to have done so.
Well, I'm not saying, but I'm saying when I don't believe he was one of those that did. I just, it's up for me to accept that. I've known him for a long time. And you look at the dust jacket, then I say to my friends that have looked at some of that things, I think you need to read my book rather than what others have said about the book. And I think you'll find...
Well, I've done both.
Because, well, no, there are no politics, but I want to put it in context because I think you asked a very important question. The notion of terrorism, combating terror, and became very much a part of the political environment within which we have been living since September 11th, 2001. It ebbs and flows, and recently that concern has flowed. But for many reasons and for many years, it was a much higher concern than just about anything else in this country. So politics is wrapped around our effort as a country to secure ourselves against terrorism. I accept that. That's a fact. I don't accept the fact, as some have suggested, that politics, particularly with regard to the book, had anything, or pressure is the word that really gives me I just absolutely reject it, the notion that the White House would pressure us to raise the threat level in order to secure some political benefit.
Well, then let me, apropos of that, your dust jacket says, and the pressure that the DHS received to basically raise the alert. I'm the author of 21 books in print from some of the largest publishers in America. My latest one came out from Viking Penguin. Before that, Random House, the largest publisher in America. They published 3 of my books. I've been with small publishers. I've been with big publishers. I have been publishing books for 20 years. I have never, ever failed to get jacket copy submitted to me before the book is approved and be required to sign off on it. Mm-hmm. Was this jacket copy not submitted to you, and did you not sign off on it?
Hey, let me tell you, Tom, we had many discussions, and I submitted my own version of the jacket copy, and it did not appear at the end day.
So they just...
I got to them perhaps too late, and the copy was, but we've had many of those discussions internally, and as I said to the people, and the good people at St. Martin Press, I'll deal with your interpretation of what I said, but if you look at page 114 and 115, it kind of contradicts what I said.
You mean it contradicts what the dust jacket said?
Correct.
Yeah,
they both do.
So...
That's
a pretty serious indictment of a publisher. I mean, speaking
I'm not indicting anybody. I'm just simply saying read my words, not how others interpret it.
Yeah, no, I got it. And as I said, I did, and I looked through the book, and the book is fascinating. A lot of fascinating insights into the time and into the culture within the White House. One last question. This is a personal curiosity. Where did the word Homeland come from? You and I are about the same age, and I don't recall Homeland ever having been used to describe the United States. Rudolf Hess rolled it out to describe Germany in '34, and then it kind of fell into disrepute after World War II. Where did it come from?
Well, that's the same question that's been asked, and nobody's given a very good answer. When the intense work was going on for 4 to 6 weeks, deciding, 1, we were going to have the department, and 2, what agencies we were going to cobble together to really build a border-centric agency, it evolved, it appeared, it was accepted without any, obviously, the historical resonance, particularly as you just pointed out, caused some people some heartburn afterwards.
It's a little creepy, yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I get it.
Do you know who suggested it, sir? We have just a couple seconds left. I'm sorry. Do you know who suggested it?
I don't.
You don't? Okay. Thom Ridge, his new book, The Test of Our Times, America Under Siege and How We Can Be Safe Again, a fascinating insight into the times of the Bush administration. Thom Ridge, thanks for dropping by today.
Nice conversation with you. Best wishes to you and your audience.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.